Hello, and welcome back to the paddock. Today we are talking about all the teams and drivers and what's been currently going on. On today's episode, you have Rachel, Amy, and myself, Hannah, with Chelsea and LeAnne behind the scenes. Now, let's go ahead and just dive on in with Amy to talk about who is currently staying on the grid for 2025.
Now, while it seems like most of the drivers have contracts that are up at the end of the 2024 season, let's see who's got seats for 2025 and in some cases for a lot longer than that. Ferrari, we have Charles with a multi-year deal, as well as Lewis with another multi-year deal. McLaren boys are sticking around, and we have Lando with another multi-year deal, whatever that may entail, and Oscar's contract through to 2026. Mercedes has George locked in with a contract for 2025. Red Bull has Max locked in until 2028, which is crazy when you think about it. Aston Martin, Lance has pretty much a rolling contract because, his dad owns the team. That shouldn't surprise anybody realistically. And then technically speaking, Williams does have Alex under contract through to 2025. But as we've seen shake out before, contracts are not always set in stone. Now, while nobody is currently out of a seat for 2025, we do have some, in case you missed it, moments from Formula One from the past weekend and into this week. In case you missed it, Max's chief mechanic, Lee Stevenson, has left Red Bull after 18 years with the team. There's speculation that he's going to Sauber, actually, based on the green and black hearts in his Instagram post. Personally, if he's going to Sauber, I really, really, really hope that he gets that mechanic team into shape because they need help or heads need to literally start rolling. I feel like I have said that 100 times in episodes, but it's the damn truth.
Yeah, please, because I truly don't think that Valtteri could survive another minute-long pit stop. I think he would lose it.
Honestly, Sauber is really struggling as a whole with those pit stops. It's honestly truly just sad to watch at this point. And not something I think either of those drivers want to go through, or at least I wouldn't, to be honest. I know Valtteri had stated in a recent interview he needed to decide if he would like to even stay for another year or a few years or not. I know he mentioned being intrigued for the 2026 new FIA rules and what that could bring, but no set in stone plans, but we'll talk about what that looks like later.
Now, as I said, we don't have anybody who isn't coming back for 2025, but if there's one person that I think is kind of at the top of that list to be somebody to watch and worry about, I hate to say it, but I think it's got to be Logan Sargent. I really do think that he is potentially at risk of losing his seat after this season. Do I think that he deserves to lose his seat? Honestly, I don't know how I feel about it because I think he deserves a chance, but he's just had such a rough go in that Williams. I don't know what the problem is per se, but I don't know. Part of me feels like I could see him switching series as a whole in the future and, I don't know, often going to IndyCar or Formula E. I have no idea, but I question his future in F1. As I mentioned earlier, Alex and Williams technically have a contract through to 2025, but like we saw with McLaren, contracts can be broken. Do I think Alex is going to leave Williams? No, abso-fucking-lutely not. I think Alex kind of embodies Williams right now, and I don't see him leaving anytime soon.
Yeah, I mean, I think if Logan can improve this season, he'll be able to keep his seat for at least another year. But really only time will tell with that. I mean, we've still got like 20 races. However, I also do think that seeing Logan in a different series would be really interesting. Like IndyCar, I feel like would be really good for him. I don't know. I feel like there's also a lot of factors outside just his like racing skill that kind of contribute to how he feels. I mean, most of the grid kind of barely talked to him. He recently said that he and Oscar actually talk less now than they used to, which, like, I mean, that makes sense. They're not on the same team anymore. They're not, like, doing media together. They're on two different teams. I just feel like there's definitely, like, a psychological aspect, I guess, that's kind of coming into play more than we can, like, see or think about. And I feel like a different series might actually be really good for him, especially, like, IndyCar, which is based in America, and I feel like it would be really good for him.
Honestly, I feel bad for Logan, and I don't really know how to describe or can even imagine what he's honestly going through, and hope whether he stays or goes, he is okay. I will say, Nick did very well when he switched back over to Formula E, or at least so far since the series has just begun. So maybe a change of pace will be good for Logan. I mean, who knows? He could be next world champion in Formula E or Indy, wherever he decides to go. Rally car. It's endless when it comes to the world of motorsports. But honestly, you could get me on a rant about Logan because that man, I feel like, deserves more than what he's given. But also, I do think that he's just been given, like, a bunch of shit over and over and over again. So we'll see what this year brings.
Yeah, I agree. I'm interested to see where he goes from here. Now, Alex, I think if Alex got a really great deal and a really just incredible offer from another team, he would go. However, I definitely can't see him going back to Red Bull. I feel like there's too much bad blood. There's just not... I mean, they really did him and Pierre dirty. Like, just... It was so bad. I could see him going to Mercedes if he got a good offer. However, again, I fear it would be Brocedes 2.0, and honestly, I don't know if I could handle that. I feel like the world would fall apart.
I don't know if you saw the YouTube karting video with Alex, Lando, and George, and they all mentioned they were very loyal to their teams and wanting to let them grow and win. Now, they kind of laughed with Alex about Williams, but he seems to be loyal to the team at the end of the day. But nothing compares when it comes down to the money. So we shall see where the money leads him. 'Cause dollar dollar bill, y'all. I do think while we predict 2025 and the crazy changeup, I think we will see silly season just insane. But I'm just going to preface this that honestly, while I think 2025 is going to be crazy, I think 2026 is going to be the biggest shakeup of them all. Because not only are we probably going to see changes with the drivers, but a lot of the teams are being restructured as a whole with these new FIA guidelines. So could we see some domination changes?
I definitely think we could see a change in who's doing well and performance. I think it's going to be really interesting to see how 2026 goes. But I have one team as a whole for me that is, I guess, my biggest question mark for the next season, and that is the Haas duo of Kevin and Nico. Part of me feels like I could see them retiring a la Sebastian Vettel to be around more for their little ones. They both have kids. But the big follow-up question to that is going to be, who the heck does Haas put in those cars? Because Lord knows Gene is not going to put two rookies in that car again. There's just no way. When pigs fly, will he allow two newbies in his cars? It's just not really going to happen. And I can't see anybody else who has a contract up that's going to want to go to Haas from where they are currently. So for me, Haas is just kind of like that big gigantic question mark where I'm just like, what are you going to do? If your drivers leave, who are you putting in that car? Because Mick Schumacher is sure as heck not going back to that team. I don't know any newbie who's going to want to risk going to Haas after what went down with Mick. I really don't know what they're going to do.
I agree. I mean, after they did Mick so dirty, I feel like there's a lot of apprehension for a lot of people there. Also, I can 100% see K-Mag and Nico retiring, especially since the maximum driver fine is going up to €1 million, which is quadruple what it was previously. And K-Mag made a comment about this saying it's ridiculous and Charles could give his watch, but I would disappear never to be found again, which like is a mood, honestly. But I could easily see him retiring because of that. I mean, even George Russell was like, there's a lot of drivers who don't even make that much money. After everything that they have to pay for and all of their expenses, they don't make that much money. Nico, maybe I could see him for another year or two, but like they have like young kids, and I think if Nico had another kid, he'd be like, I'm out. And I mean, K-Mag has two now. I feel like they're definitely the kind of guys that would just be like, yeah, I'm out.
Honestly, I agree with you, Rachel, because they both have really young kids. I mean, if I were them, I'd want to enjoy the little time that I have with like their youth, or like being young and being able to like have fun and see them grow up while you can. Cuz they'll grow up in a blink of an eye. Like it's freaking insane. But I sometimes wonder if Haas just needs a full redo. Start over, cleanse, whatever you make of it. Because it's just been rough. And whenever they get close to a potential points or victory, it seems like something goes wrong. So hopefully, here's to the future of good. I'm laughing as I'm saying that because the odds are not in their favor. But like we say for Ferrari all the time, we need a cleanse, we need to whatever, because they are the original American team. So one can hope for at least some good.
Again, Andretti, just buy Haas. Let's just get a whole new thing going. Just start over.
Honestly, Rachel, what you said, perfect. Andretti, if you hear this, please make it happen, because the FIA clearly didn't do their work or messed up with something and didn't let you in with F1. So why not just buy your way into it? Buy a team. I mean, that's what Aston Martin did. I mean, why not? Let's go. Maybe then the odds will be in our favor.
I mean, I'm all for just bidding Haas and bringing Andretti. I really still don't understand why they got blocked, but that's a whole different story. Another team that I think really needs a cleanse, a change, a sound bath, all of the above, all of the things to just refocus everything is Sauber. At least in terms of their team personnel, given all of those pit stop issues that we've seen, I just think that they need to either clean house or retrain some people or something. Like, something's got to give, and it cannot be their drivers. But something in my gut is saying that Valtteri might leave the team. Now, my theory is about to get a little crazy. Maybe tinfoil hattie if you think of it like that, but this is just how my brain works. Valtteri Bottas back to Mercedes for a singular year as a thank you for all of the times that that man has had that team's back and Lewis's back for his final season. Call it a swan song, and he retires and just goes off and does something else, probably cycling and his gin business. But I could so see Toto and him being like, all right, we're going to just bring you back for a year so we can figure out what we want to do. It gives them more time with Kimi Antonelli to see if Kimi Antonelli is actually somebody who should get an F1 seat. And if they just put Valtteri in the car for a year, he leaves. You can pop Kimi right on in if you really want to. I don't know. It's a crazy theory, but I'd love to see it, honestly. But we have to keep in mind when we're talking about Sauber that in 2026, they're going to be Audi. So I can also see them just saying, all right, we need to prep for being Audi, so we need drivers that Audi wants, and just bringing in two completely different drivers than Zhou and Valtteri. The rumors are Nico Hulkenberg and Carlos Sainz. Both make sense. Audi's going to want a German driver. Nico is German. And Carlos has an insane family connection to Audi. So, like, it makes sense. But will it actually all happen? I don't know. Maybe I would really lose my mind if we saw Valtteri back in a Mercedes just for a year. But I'd also be a little worried about what the hell is going to happen to Zhou, because I really do want him to stay on the grid. I think he deserves the seat for sure.
I agree. I feel like Sauber has so much potential, and again, those minute-long pit stops just hurt my soul every time. I would be really interested if Valtteri went back to Mercedes, just because of how the whole situation between him and George went down when George was vying for that seat. I mean, they've both like had more years. They've grown as people, so I think it would probably be fine. But again, it might not be. There might still be a little bit of bad blood. I think that would be really interesting to see.
Honestly, I'm here for a little bit of a shakeup. So, Aminosity, I mean, maybe it will challenge them to both be better? I don't know. Who knows? You never know. But, I mean, I will say, I might actually cry if we lose Zhou from the grid. Like, I know he's very underrated from the typical drivers that people always mention, but Zhou Guanyu, I mean, that fashionista, I mean, he deserves a seat. He's doing good, I mean, despite the hiccups of Sauber.
Now, I feel like the almost easiest team to talk about is the Aston Martin duo, because unless Fernando Alonso decides to completely like go rogue and either lands himself a Mercedes seat or Red Bull seat, I don't really see him going anywhere from Aston. I think he's done so well with the team that it doesn't make sense for him to leave necessarily. But I feel like so much of this silly season is just going to be next level chaos. But it all hinges on that dang open Mercedes seat. Now, I really need either of you guys to tell me if I'm crazy, but I cannot be the only one who thinks that this is just going to be a gigantic game of musical chairs, Formula One edition, for silly season, because I'm expecting the rumor mill to go mad when silly season kicks off, and I'm expecting just like everybody to throw me for an absolute loop. Will it happen? We're going to find out. We're only on race 4 so far, so who knows? Things could change.
Honestly, if you look at it from like an open seat at Mercedes and a potential open seat at Red Bull, I mean, just thinking from that aspect alone, there's going to be blood. Like, the drivers are going to be, especially from the lower teams, they're going to be literally kicking and screaming theoretically to obtain that seat, because who wouldn't want to be at one of the top teams on the grid? I know I would. But if you look at it from the Mercedes, I know we've all probably seen the memes or the predictions out there. There are rumors that Fernando may jump ship if given the opportunity, but who actually knows? I think Fernando is loyal to some extent, and if he likes his pairing, maybe with Lance Stroll, he could be willing to stay there. I also wonder if to some degree, like, Fernando's a mentor to Lance, so who knows?
Honestly, I am expecting a lot of rumors and a lot of drama, and I am here for it. Netflix, please make sure you get as much as possible. I know you can't get everything, but as much of the drama as possible. I feel like summer break is just going to be constant news.
Yeah, I mean, to go back to Hannah's point of Fernando kind of being a mentor for Lance, Lance has said, and I think Fernando has confirmed this as well, that Lance has known Fernando since he was like a little kid, because Fernando was friends with his dad. So in a way, I wonder if there's always been kind of a little bit of a mentorship relationship with the two of them, but we're going to see what happens with the Aston boys. Now, this take may ruffle some feathers, and that is revolving around Daniel Ricciardo and Yuki Tsunoda. Yes, 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 Yuki has been outperforming Danny, which is really, really hard to see as a diehard DR3 girl. Like, it really hurts. But Yuki has spent years driving that AlphaTauri, RB, whatever you want to call it, car, and has just kind of figured out the best way to drive it and make it work for him. But the team has constantly said that Danny has given them the better feedback and allowed them to make better changes to the car that have actually helped Yuki. So in some ways, I question how much of Yuki's current good performance is Yuki's driving ability and how much of it is the changes that were made to the car based on Danny's feedback. Now, this is where I'm really going to ruffle some feathers, and that is the fact that I really don't think that Yuki should be considered for that open Red Bull seat for 2025. I really feel like Yuki has some more maturing that he needs to do to be able to control his reactions when he thinks things are unfair, I guess is the best word to use. I'm also not 100% sure that Danny should go back to Red Bull either, but I know part of the draw that Red Bull sees in him is, one, how marketable Daniel is. He will be leaps and bounds more marketable than Yuki, and honestly, he's more marketable than Checo. And there's the other factor of the fact that Max genuinely got along with Danny and has openly said that he would love to team up with Danny again. So I don't really know what's going to happen with the Yuki, Danny, Checo open Red Bull seat situation, but some of the Yuki fans may potentially want to come for my head. I'm sorry, y'all, but I love him, but I really don't think that he is mature enough to handle the pressure that comes with the A-team seat. I think he's going to crack, and I think that's just not fair. I think he's got a lot of potential, and if they give him more time in a lower team to grow and learn to control his reactions and his emotions to things, I think he actually could do fantastic at Red Bull Racing, but I think he needs more time to just get his ish together, because I really don't think he's there quite yet. I think he's just too young, and that might sound bad, but it's just my honest opinion. Sorry, not sorry.
Honestly, I agree with you, Amy. If you look back at the previous track records with Alex Albon going to Red Bull too early, or Pierre Gasly going to Red Bull too early before they were quite ready for that stress that goes along with, let's say, Red Bull, that sometimes it can lead to more failures than successes. And while both have done really good in their newfound teams and have made strides, I think there's sometimes where you have to look at it, there's a time and a place. And for Yuki per se, I don't necessarily think it's the time. I think it might be the place. I just don't think it's the time for him. And then when you think about Danny right there, you catch me kind of doing a catch-22 here. I would love to see him back at Red Bull because, dominating Danny Rick days, for all my history, old F1 people, 2018 Monaco just brings back so many highlight memories for me. But you have to remember that he did not like being in Max's shadow. So I wonder if things have changed, or if he goes back, they're going to go back to the same old, same old. And while they're really good friends and they have a good working relationship, a good friendship, whatever you want to call it, you can't help but wonder what that looks like. But I do agree, I think Checo, it's time for a change. Sorry, my man. I wish you all the luck.
No, honestly, I completely agree. Danny is very marketable, but this season just hasn't been shaking out well for him. Now, that could totally change. We're only 4 races-ish into the season. We've got 20 left. It's kind of still anyone's game. I also agree that I don't think Yuki is quite ready for that Red Bull seat, because I feel like he and Max are both a little too aggressive, and that is just a recipe for disaster. I feel like I don't know. It just doesn't seem like it would work really well. But for me, the thing about the second Red Bull seat is that, and this is in my opinion, based on like my observations, no matter who is in that seat, they will always come second to Max. And I really cannot think of anyone that would be on par with him enough to be treated equally at Red Bull. Even if they are on par with him, Max has been there for so long, they'd still be kind of the outsider. And I don't know, as much as I love Danny and Max together, they're hilarious, they're such good friends. Danny doesn't want to be in Max's shadow, and that, I feel like that's just how it is at Red Bull. But with that said, there also have been some rumors that Carlos Sainz Sr. was talking to Red Bull, and I would honestly love to see Carlos at Red Bull, mostly because Jos Verstappen versus Carlos Sainz Sr. would be probably the most dramatic and insane thing. I would place bets on who would get banned from the garage or paddock first, and I think we all know who I'd put my money on.
Honestly, I'm going to preface this first with I apologize in advance for anybody I'm fixing to offend. But please, that is actually something I didn't know I needed until now, and now I need this to happen because I'm betting the same as Rachel here, and I would not complain about it happening. Like, I just have a feeling Carlos Sainz Sr. would be like, domination, and be like, get out, I'm not tolerating you, and he would shed some light about a certain person. And like, why the heck not? Like, honestly, why the heck not? But I did want to mention real quick, because we talked about Max and like the inevitable second seat. I know we've all heard the theories. It's cursed. I mean, that seat is legit cursed. So whoever ends up there, I mean, whether it's a year, 2 years, 5 years, with Max always having that first seat, the second seat will always be cursed.
Now, I also would pay good money to see Jos Verstappen versus Carlos Sainz Sr. because, heck yeah, that's going to be a knockout, drag-out fight for days. I mean, good Lord. Just like imagining it, I'm like, wow, that would be insane to experience. But I have to say, to go back to Rachel's comment on Danny not necessarily wanting to be in Max's shadow again, I kind of wonder if he's actually okay with that. Part of me feels like he's 34. He's at a different season in his life than he was when they first became teammates. He's been through a lot of different stuff, especially with his time at McLaren. And part of me wonders if he actually would be a better teammate to Max now because of what he's experienced. I kind of feel like he actually would be okay in that second seat and just like helping Max thrive and helping the team and just wanting to be back with that Red Bull family, because I know he's said in some interviews like it felt like going home, and I think he really wants to feel like he is actually home and not just like at an aunt's house like I think he might feel like he is at like Red Bull or at RB, not Red Bull. But it kind of just like it, I feel like he really wants to go to his true home, and that is Oracle Red Bull Racing. I don't know. Part of me feels like he's ready to go back and end his career there, but I don't think he'd be there for long. But we also don't know how long Max is going to stay at Red Bull. I mean, yeah, he's got a contract for a while, but it's only until 2028. He could say, all right, we've got new regulations and new rules, and I want to have a massive change now that I've seen how everything has shifted and seen how teams adapt to the new rules. Because for all we know, Red Bull could absolutely tank with the new regulations, and a completely other team could be excelling, and he could just be like, all right, I'm jumping ship. See ya later. I gave you your wins. I'm going to go win somewhere else now.
No, I completely agree. And I think you make a really interesting point about Danny now versus then. I mean, you're right. He's gone through a lot. He went through Renault, he went through McLaren, and I think that 1 year off, he's definitely like grown. And I could see him being in a position where he's like, okay, I want to win some races, but I just want to be part of a team that I know I enjoy being on. And, it's not like Max is going to win I mean, he is winning almost every single race, but like there's still somewhat of a chance that, Danny could be winning races if he was in Red Bull, even though Max is like their quote number one driver or whatever. I think that would be really interesting. I definitely think it's going to hinge on Danny's performance this year. So I think that'll be really interesting to see. Yeah.
I mean, last year when Danny tested the Red Bull car before taking over the Nick seat, he was almost identical time-wise to Max Verstappen. So if you give him the car, I think he could do very well with it. But who knows where he'll actually end up, because like Rachel said, I think a lot depends on how he does this year. And it's going to be a full year. He's got no injuries. He's got no mid-season getting used to the car, been out for a year, things like that. So I think he's going to have to, unfortunately, come in and show his worth a little bit to prove himself for the path moving forward. And then kind of like Amy said with Max's inevitable leave or not leave, I mean, there is a rumor that there's a said clause in his contract. So if 2026 shakes up, I mean, could we see him use said clause? Whatever that is, if he has it, if he doesn't, no one's confirmed nor denied it. I have not seen the contract, but if he does have it, I mean, who knows? I wouldn't be surprised.
I bet you most of those drivers, at least like Lando, Max, Charles, Lewis, Carlos, probably Checo, like maybe George, all have a clause in their contract that probably gives them some kind of out due to performance. I mean, we saw McLaren use, I think, a version of that kind of a clause with Danny. So I bet it's in most contracts at this point. Like, I bet it probably wasn't as common like before 2020, but I bet you like 2019 contracts and back, I bet there wasn't a clause in there, but I think that's probably been a newer ad is my bet. Maybe I'm wrong though. Who knows?
I can see that. I mean, I can also I can see that being in there for almost the benefit more so of the team, but the driver still has the ability to use it. It's just not going to be necessarily the main way that that clause would be used. But we've talked about all of the shakeups that we think are going to happen. We have to talk about the biggest shakeup that has already happened with Lewis moving to Ferrari, which, and I've mentioned this before, I think, but when that news dropped, I was in a meeting and my phone would not stop buzzing. My coworker was like, do you need to get that? And I was like, no, I'll check it when I'm done. And I feel like that was probably one of the most insane news days in F1 in quite a while. Probably since Sebastian announced his retirement, because that was a shock to everyone.
Honestly, that day, my Instagram wouldn't stop blowing up. My TikTok wouldn't stop blowing up. My WhatsApp, Twitter. I mean, I was at the point where I think I turned off my phone because I'm like, I've got to work. My boss would probably kill me. With me just being glued to my phone, seeing all the memes, the predictions, whatnot. I mean, Lewis, he left Mercedes. 7-time world champion, left Mercedes to go to Ferrari. How is that not crazy? If you wanted the biggest shakeup, that is it. Hands down, that is it.
Yeah, and that news, and then a couple weeks later, getting that scene from Drive to Survive where he tells Toto, you can be here for another 20 years, I can't. I think it just started the cycle all over again. Everybody was like, this is just It was one of those things where I was like, I don't even know how to process this. This is so not something that I think anybody expected. I still don't know how to process it.
See, no, this is the way that you know Formula One news is like major, is when the non-F1 fans that you're friends with are sending you Instagram posts, tweets, things on Facebook, things from TikTok. When the non-F1 fans hear about it, you know it's a huge freaking deal. And my phone was blowing up like every other F1 fans, but mine was blowing up from my mother, my dad, my sister, like the people in my life who know I love F1, who do not follow anything but our podcast. And they're sending me everything they're seeing and going, oh my God, is this a big deal? And I'm like, this is like the biggest deal of big deals, people.
Honestly, same, Amy. I mean, I think even the world of F1, it even hit the people outside of the world of F1. But as we just announced the Lewis news, I have to talk about Carlos Sainz, because while Lewis made the drastic move from Mercedes to Ferrari, that meant that Carlos Sainz was unfortunately out of a seat after the 2024 season. And I think everyone, especially after the Australian Grand Prix, has their eyes on him and where he'll end up, what the future holds. I mean, as that man has been, after last year and this year, one of the only contenders to Max that has been able to like fight him and be on the podium next to him or beside him or ahead of him, I can't help to wonder if sometimes Ferrari thinks that they made the wrong mistake first. I mean, we all saw the April Fool's full news today from Ferrari, basically saying that we've retracted our statement and we will be keeping Carlos for the 2025 season, and then said April Fools. And I kid you not, when I woke up and saw that, I was like, do not do that to me. Like, I cannot handle this early in the morning. Like, please. Like, this man needs positive, not like, haha. But a lot of the teams did something similar to that, so sad. But I just want to say, like, Carlos, if we see what he did in Australia, could we see that go forth through the rest of the season? Could he be trying to prove something? Could we see him at Mercedes? Could we see him at Red Bull? I don't know. I could see him at both, but only time will tell. And now that we've kind of wrapped up this episode, I can't help but talk about the upcoming race that's going on, Japan. It's probably one of my most exciting races of the year. I am hoping, since it's a home race for Yuki either ends up in the points or, who knows, knock on wood, he ends up on the podium. But I can't help but wonder if we will see Carlos and Lando on the podium again. I know for me, I love a Carlando podium, but I also think, like we've all kind of mentioned, like you've all seen, Max is going to be out for vengeance. Like, that man is going to be like, I deserve my podium back. Give it to me. Dominating, whatever the case is. And I think everybody should watch out for him. Let's be honest.
You are not wrong, Han. I have seen some theories online that they speak to my soul of Max just putting like a 30-second buffer between him and like literally everybody else. Is that doable? I'm not 100% sure. My favorite one, I think, has to be a mock radio message from GP that is him telling Max, Max, we're not sure how you're hitting speeds this fast. Like, we're really not sure how this is possible, what you're doing, and it's just Mad Max being Mad Max. Because I was not on the last episode, I was not able to give my predictions for Japan. So I'm going to kind of just do mine off the cuff. I don't have my pendulum on me, so sorry. This is not my usual style of doing them. But the obvious is Max in a P1 with the widest margin ever. I sense a record coming for him. I definitely think we could see a Carlando podium as the second and third. I would really love to see Lando in second, but I'll take them either way. But I would love to see Max, Carlos, and Lando on a podium. I think that would be really good. I think it would also just be like a fun little Max podcast to have after we did not get one last race. So who really knows what's going to happen? I'm super excited for all of my fellow East Coast people. I will be just staying up all night because it technically starts at 1 a.m. for me. So sometimes I have a love-hate with Suzuka because it's just, do I stay up all night? Do I go to bed and then wake up? It's a hard one to decide what you're going to do. But I honestly think I'm just going to stay up all damn night and hope and pray and knock on some dang wood that there's no like rain or anything, because if we get delays, I'm going to actually sob because that's just going to get so late and I can't, no, please no, just no. I would love to see Suzuka and have it go well with no hitches, but I feel like that never happens for Suzuka ever.
I agree. I would love to see it be super smooth, but that I feel like it's just not how Suzuka works. I think we're going to get at least one lizard on track. That is one of my predictions. I also, Max is going to be out for vengeance. He's going to be out for blood. And that man he will not stop. Literally. I think I saw a NASCAR quote. And it's just, I feel like how Max is going to be, where he said, I'm going to put my foot down and I'm not stopping until I see God or a checkered flag. And I feel like that sums up how Max is going to be in Japan. I would love to see another Carlando podium. I loved seeing Lando on the podium in general. His podium celebrations are always fantastic. And how am I supposed to cross off my broken trophy square if Lando's not on a podium?
And now to close out the episode with probably one of my favorite. And today we are going to do a fun little quote from Yuki, because we have to. We're going to the Japan GP, of course. And I kind of wanted to mention something that he said when he joined the grid back in 2021. And he had kind of mentioned, I realize I will be carrying the hopes of a lot of the Japanese F1 fans next year. And I will be having to do this over and over. And I will be doing my best for them too. Which means he really cares about his hometown. He cares about his fans. And he wants to succeed, I think, like every home driver, to do the best that they can. And I just love that. And with that, I wish Yuki a great and safe race.
Who doesn't love a little silly season talk? Let us know what you think silly season is going to look like on our socials. Everywhere we are Paddock Girls Podcast, except on Twitter, where we are Paddock Girls Pod. Thank you so much for joining us in the paddock, and we will see you in Suzuka. Goodbye.
Bye.
See you later.
Goodbye.